Microtransactions are something that's become almost a guaranteed part of games these days. However, back in the days of 2004 when WoW first launched, they weren't even thought of. Or were they? And of course, for the purposes of this video, a microtransaction is an in-game item that is either made easier to obtain or is only obtainable through a real money purchase. First, let's start in 2004. The very second WoW Vanilla launched, and we already have microtransactions. Starting with the Collector's Edition, a more expensive version of the base game that came with many real-life items like a mousepad, an art book, some music discs, etc, etc. However, it also came with an in-game good, one of 3 pets of your choice to all of your characters. A little Diablo from Diablo, a little Zergling from StarCraft, or a baby panda from Warcraft's Pandaria. These 3 pets were, and still are, only attainable by buying the WoW Vanilla's Collector's Edition. This has caused some issues recently, as WoW Classic and Retail are, as Blizzard have said, 100% separate entities. However, if you have the Retail Collector's Edition, you also get these pets in Classic WoW. Meaning over 15 years later, with the re-release of Vanilla WoW in WoW Classic, the only way to get these pets on the new Classic WoW is to pay a few $1,000s to buy an unopened Vanilla Collector's Edition. And really, Collector's Editions would come for every expansion afterwards, and with little to no changes other than what general rewards were given. Then we move on to 2005, the first real year of WoW. And well, what do we have? A new style of microtransactions, the BlizzCon items. This being the Murky Egg, which summoned the famous Murky Companion.
And not only have you made my people a pet, but you have encouraged them to kill, and they shall be forgiven for their sins if they adopt one of my children. You're stealing my children. You're stealing them from their home of South Shore.
Obtained from going to BlizzCon, which was quite expensive really. Tickets were a fair price, and most players you needed to buy plane tickets, a hotel room, and a much more simply just to go to BlizzCon to get the code required. That or buy one offline and hope that you didn't get scammed. Then with 2006 and the soon coming arrival of TBC, we got a few new things. First, we got the first character service, Realm Transfer. For a price, this allowed characters to transfer their characters from one server to another. However, having a 6-month cooldown per character only lowered many years later. Meaning you could not transfer willy-nilly. Some would say this was the first nail in the coffin for server identity. Got a reputation for being a scumbag ninja looter? Then just Realm Transfer. The next new microtransaction was a cross-promotion. WoW was becoming huge, and with this they decided to make a trading card game. And to help sell this, they added special loot cards to the TCG. These cards had a rare chance of being found in specific card expansions, and could be redeemed in-game in WoW. Many of these could even be sold at the auction house, meaning in a way, you could now exchange real-life money for in-game gold without the risk of getting banned for buying stuff off of a shifty website. The first expansion was the Heroes of Azeroth, and had the Tabard of the Flame, the Hippogriff Hatchling Pet, and the Riding Turtle mount. Before we move on, a couple cool facts about the Riding Turtle. When it was first added, it had no use. It was the same speed as the default run speed, and in some cases was even slower, and it was not until much later on when it got a swim speed added to it. Another cool fact is that in Warlords of Draenor, this was the only TCG mount made available in-game, now able to be fished up in the garrison's fishing pond, made hilariously easy with the fishing parties of the Legion pre-patch cross-realm grouping. Now, on to the year of 2007, and with the launch of TBC, we had a Collector's Edition again, giving a pet. However, instead of a choice of 3 pets, you got one specific one, a Nether Drake Whelp pet. However, EU players, as a bug, got the Lurky pet, a white baby Murloc as well.
We do nothing, we go grr, 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 grr. That's not us yelling, that's not us screaming.
This was a bug that Blizzard decided not to fix as it was too late by the time they'd notice. Then after that, we had another BlizzCon thing, this time giving a toy instead of a pet called the Murloc costume. Using this, put on a horribly made Murloc costume wielding a BlizzCon flag.
That's us crying!
And lastly, we had a whopping 3 TCG expansions with loot cards in them. Through the Dark Portal contained a toy picnic basket, a pet banana charm that summoned a pet monkey, and an Impinaball toy acting like a magic 8-ball. Then we got the Fires of Outland expansion that had a Goblin Gumbo kettle toy, a fishing chair toy, and the legendary reins of the Swift Spectral Tiger mount, going for a whopping $8,000 these days. Then, lastly, March of the Legion. This had a paper flying machine, a rocket chicken pet, and the dragon kite pet. As you can see, the TCG really has started to kick up the amount of items on this list. Eventually, in BlizzCon Online 2021, they gave out a similar Nether Drake Welt pet, again as a promotion for TBC Classic as part of one of their bundles, in reminiscent of the TBC Collector's Edition. Anyways, lastly, for the year 2007, we got the name change character surface added to the store. 2008, the year of Wrath of the Lich King, and of course, the Wrath of the Lich King's Collector's Edition, containing the pet Frosty, a little skeletal dragon whelp. And for this year's BlizzCon, we got the Blizzard Bear mount, with a small baby Murloc on its back waving a BlizzCon flag. But wait, we also had this thing called the World of Warcraft Invitational, a big WoW tournament separate from BlizzCon. And this year, if you traveled there and bought a ticket, you would get the Tyrael's Hilt, that summoned a small Tyrael companion from Diablo. This was the only reward ever from this event, as soon after the event would just be merged into BlizzCon. Next, of course, we have the TCG rewards, another 3 expansions, the Servants of the Betrayer, which contain the Goblin Weather Machine toy, the X51 Nether Rocket Extreme mount. Funnily enough, it's the mount used for Wowhead's icon. And lastly, the Papa Hummel's Pet Biscuits, allowing you to double your companion pet size. And this was actually a consumable, and you only got 50 of them from the loot card, so you could eventually just run out. Although this card was rather common, so it was not too much of a deal. Although they later on added an in-game item that can be obtained that did exactly the same thing. So save the money, go to the Timeless Isle and buy some, or just do pet battle events as they drop like candy from pet loot bags you obtain from all forms of pet battle content. Next, we have the Hunt for Illidan expansion, giving you the Disco toy, the Soul Trade Beacon, which summoned an ethereal pet, actually acting as a vendor, just not one you could sell anything to, and while summoned, allowing you to gather a special currency for killing things that is used to buy stuff from the vendor. A cosmetic set that looks like ethereal bandages, some neat stuff like alcohol, and a ball to throw to your friends, or alter your companion's appearance. And the biggest thing being a potion that allowed you to see lesser invisibility. This could possibly be seen as pay to win, but it's not. And then the Path of the Illidan, another consumable item. This left a fail trail behind you for 5 minutes, and came with 100 charges. Lastly, the Drums of War expansion, which contained the Flag of the Ownership toy, the Big Battle Bear mount, and 100 party grenades, an item they made pretty easy to get in-game later on in WoW. You can see a bit of a trend now. They are adding a few consumable items. However, as the TCG was later discontinued, Blizzard added these consumable items to the game as a way to get them even after the cards have long since disappeared. 2009, the 5th anniversary of WoW's release. At this point, we really start to see the microtransactions speed up, so we better get through these quick. Our first ever virtual BlizzCon. Now finally people can get BlizzCon goodies without traveling across the world for a few days and paying insane costs. And for buying this ticket, you got Grunty, a Murloc in a StarCraft Marine armor. We also got the new character services, faction change, a race change. We also got another 3 TCG expansions, the Blood of the Gladiators containing the Sandbox Tiger toy, another consumable toy, Epic Purple Shirt, and a Foam Sword Rack toy. The Fields of Honor expansion containing the Path of Sonaris, an item like the Trail of Illidan but flowers instead of Felflame, the Ogre Pinata toy, and the Magic Rooster mount. And the Scourge Wear expansion, the Tuskar Kite pet, the Spectral Tiger Cub pet, and the Little White Stallion mount for Alliance, or Little Ivory Raptor for Horde. But wait, it's not actually a mount. It was a mount, but each time you mounted onto it, it would consume one of its charges and only came with 50 charges. Maybe the only consume on use mount in history. Or I guess there's also the Winter's Veil reindeers, those also count. But before we move on to 2010, there is one more thing they added, the virtual store. This is a store we still have to this day, although originally not in-game, it was on their website, later moved to in-game. The store launched with the little phylactery, summoning a little KT pet, and the Pandaren monk pet. However, the Pandaren monk pet launched with a new charity event where people would buy the pet and 100% of the money earned would go to the charity of Blizzard's choice, allowing players to donate to charities and be rewarded for it with a pet in their favorite game. Then, in the year of 2010, Cataclysm is released in this year, and with it, the little Deathwing pet coming from its collector's edition, as well as the Murloc Deathwing hybrid pet, Deathy, coming from BlizzCon. We also got a ton of new things added to the Warcraft store. A little Ragnaros pet, a little XT pet, and a Moonkin hatchling pet, bringing back the charity event pet. Also the infamous Celestial Steed mount. This mount caused all kinds of backlash when it was released, as it was the first real store mount, and just straight up had advantages over in-game mounts. Its speed changed along with your training, which no other pets did at the time. It would gain the ability to fly when you unlocked flying, and it could be obtained on all of your alts instead of just one character. So it was the first mount a lot of player alts would have since it was free for them, and was seen everywhere in low-level battlegrounds because of it. And then again, another 3 TCG expansions. The Wrathgate, containing the Instant Statue Pedestal toy, the Blazing Hippogriff mount, and Landro's Gift Box. This box was very common, although it's now very expensive, because it was WoW's very first loot crate, I guess you could call it. It always contained a Sandbox Tiger, or Pet Biscuit, or Pathos Cenarius, although it could also contain a Spectral Tiger, a Swift Spectral Tiger, an X-51 Nether Rocket Extreme, and a special blue version simply called the X-51 Nether Rocket, as well as a Big Battle Bear, or a Riding Turtle. Some would almost call this WoW's version of gambling, although buying the TCG packs themselves could also be called such, so funny enough, through the art on this card, it included a ton of past loot card references on it, although most of the things visible in the card art are not actually obtainable from the box. Next, we have the Ice Crown TCG expansion containing the first ever unique Hearthstone, a toy called the Ethereal Portal. Then the Woolly White Rhino mount, and a consumable Paint Bombs, again 50 charges per card. Then lastly, the Worldbreaker expansion, which had a Grim Campfire toy, the modeled Drake mount, and Landros Little XT, the exact same pet that was available on the in-game store for 8 months at this point, but with a different name? Why they did this, I'm not super sure. 2011 was quite a unique year for WoW microtransactions. First, we got the Merkablow, a hybrid Diablo Murloc pet from BlizzCon, guild services in the manner of faction transfers, realm transfers, and name change, allowing people to change entire guilds, especially with the new guild progression system, meaning guilds actually meant something now with achievements and levels and such. Then as usual, 3 TCG expansions. War of the Elements, containing the War Party Hitching Post, a toy you place that let players click on it to mount on a horse. Then the Savage Raptor mount, and the Landros Lichling pet. Again, just like Little XT, this pet was the same one available on the in-game store, but was now also made obtainable randomly from a card pack, with also technically a different name. Then we have the Twilight of the Dragons, Nightsaber Cub Companion, Fool's Gold toy, allowing people to click on it to summon a Kobold Companion for a bit, and the Amani Dragonhawk mount. Lastly, the Thrones of Tides expansion, seemingly named after the cancelled raid for Cataclysm. It contained the Purple Puffer pet, a sack of starfish toy that lets you throw starfishes onto your friend's face, and the Swift Shore Strider mount. That's a lot of microtransactions, isn't it? We are almost halfway there. In the in-game store, we also got the Winged Guardian mount and the Cenarian Hatchling pet. This time a companion from the TCG being added to the store, instead of the other way around. And lastly, we got the Guardian Cub Companion pet. This pet was unique that this pet could be bought in the in-game store for real cash, and then be traded in-game, and even sold on the auction house, and was removed 3 years later, meaning there is a limited amount of these now in the game, and they were bought for real money and traded for gold. Acting almost as WoW's token does today, except it's a pet and not WoW time or BNet balance. It was Blizzard's first attempt to try and have a way to pay real money from the online store to convert it into gold in game through the auction house, which wasn't as successful as they probably hoped. Now we move over to 2012, first year in a long time with no BlizzCon, so we move right away to the TCG packs, with the Crown of Heavens first, a magical ogre idol toy, Grail Moss pet, and the Corrupted Hippogriff mount. Next, we have the Tomb of the Forgotten War, which had the Spurious Sarcophagus toy, the Sand Scarab pet, and the White Riding Camel mount. Then, the War of the Ancients expansions, the Demon Hunter's Aspect toy, allowing you to play a Demon Hunter only about 4 years early, the Eye of the Legion pet, and the Feldrake mount. 2012 was also the year we got the Mists of Pandaria Collector's Edition, which not only had the pet being the lucky Quillian Cub, but also a mount to match in the Imperial Quillen. Then the in-game store, we got the Cinder Kitten pet, being the charity event pet for the year, Soul of the Aspects pet, and the Heart of the Aspects mount, one of the most annoying flying mounts to ever use in-game. And lastly, we got a very special mount. This mount was called Tyrael's Charger, based on Tyrael from Diablo 3. This mount was granted to players who signed up for the annual subscription to WoW, and as a bonus for doing so, they got this mount, as well as Diablo 3 for free, and even access to the Mists of Pandaria beta. As you would guess, this promo only lasted for 6 months, and this type of promo was pretty well received, and would see a return some years later. 2013, a very special year. BlizzCon is back, and this time with Murkalot, based on a Murloc version of the new Crusader class in Diablo 3, who was also one of the only good microtransaction pets when it came to pet battles later on. Surprisingly, all of the best pets in pet battles are usually very easy to obtain in-game, with Murkalot being the lone exception until they nerfed it in Shadowlands. We also were saying goodbye to Murkamis the Gladiator. This Gladiator Murloc pet was made available in 2009 and was gifted to players who completed 200 duels in the special arena tournament servers. These servers were open for a limited time each year and cost money to access them. Then in 2010 it was lowered to 50. Another bonus was the Vanquisher title, a title granted to those who were in the top 1,000 teams on the server. A title that, like the pet, transferred to the normal realms as well. And with these servers going away for the final time in 2013, they were gone. Another thing going away in 2013 was the TCG, with one final expansion, Betrayal of the Guardian, the Gusting Remor pet, the Dark Portal Hearthstone, and the Ghastly Charger mount. And there we go, that's the end of the TCG. Thank Lord, cause 9 new items every year from the TCG alone was way too much to list for this video. Now, onto the in-game store. Seemingly to make up for the lack of 2 TCG expansions, they put more things onto the store itself. First, the Alteric Brandy Bernard Companion, which was part of a charity event for the year, the Enchanted Fey Dragon mount, the Blossoming Ancient pet, which is a special Trent that changes appearances with the real-life seasons, the Armored Bloodwing mount, Swift Windsteed mount, and our first ever transmog of the in-game store, the Crown of Eternal Winter, Hood of Hungering Darkness, and the Jewel of the Fire Lord, which were so poorly received they didn't try putting transmog on the store again for another 7 years. 2014, WoW's 10th anniversary and the release of Warlords of Draenor. This year introduced the character boost, allowing people to instantly get to level 90, which at the time of release was max level. Although once Warlords of Draenor released, was only now high enough level to get started in the expansion. It also came with the Dread Raven mount and matching pet. BlizzCon that year, to match the expansion, came out with the Grom Hellscream Murloc. And well, the store only got a few items. The Argy pet, which was part of that yearly charity event, the Grinning Reaver mount, Iron Sky Reaver mount, and the Warforged Nightmare mount, which came with the Hitching Post toy. Much like the Hitching Post earlier from the TCG, it allowed friends to click on it in order to get a temporary version of the mount. For how much people complained about the store mounts in this year, since they believe those WoD aesthetic mounts should have been rewards from WoD content, it was actually quite a light year in terms of microtransactions. Now into 2015. First, we have the Murkadin, a Demon Hunter Murloc given by BlizzCon, as well as Nimbles, the Fellstalker pet, and the Illidari Fellstalker mount from the Legion Collector's Edition. Then, Brightpaw, the magical cat pet, which was part of the charity event for the year, and the Mystic Runesaber mount. And lastly, the biggest thing ever added to WoW's microtransactions, the WoW token. This item was able to be bought with real money and put onto the auction house, which then could be bought for gold by other players, who could then consume it to gain 30 days of game time. Yes, WoW was finally adding a 100% direct version of trading real money for gold, and the player base has been very vocally upset about it ever since, even if it is a very popular addition to the game that is very widely used. Now into 2016, we have 2 Murloc pets, each based on the factions, a Horde Murloc and an Alliance Murloc, both from BlizzCon. And Mischief, a Fel-corrupted pet that was the charity event pet of the year. And that's it. Yeah, that's all there is for 2016. Probably the lightest year ever in terms of microtransactions. For 2017, we got another year of faction-themed rewards, this time 2 mounts, an airship for Alliance and Zeppelin for Horde, celebrating faction more at BlizzCon. We got 3 things added to the in-game store, the charity event pet of the year, Shadow the Fox pet, the Luminous Starseeker mount, and a cat pet called Twilight. There was 2 special things that also happened this year. First, the WoW token could now be exchanged for BattleNet balance instead of WoW time. Costing $20 to purchase it, it could be exchanged for $15 or 1 month of game time. And lastly, the Asian servers had a special event to celebrate the Chinese New Year. For the Year of the Rooster, anyone who did a special subscription promo got the magical rooster mount. Meaning technically, in Asian servers, the riding turtle was no longer the only TCG mount now obtainable through other means. Although the riding turtle was still the only one obtainable for free in-game. Also, the Tyrael's Charger mount was made available on Asian servers in their in-game store, since they did not get the same promo the rest of the world did. So on to 2018. For this year's BlizzCon, giving you a special transmog cape based on your faction, for a Horde or Alliance, as well as a banner toy, again based on your faction. To pair this faction conflict, we got Battle for Azeroth Collector's Edition. This came with a mount also based on your faction, a Zandalai Raptor for Horde, and a Kulturon Steed for Alliance, and a Tottle, the Tortollan pet. We also got the Captain Cracker parrot pet on the in-game store, and this year's charity event was Whomper the Yeti. There was also the Vulpine Familiar and Shunzen, a dog mount calibrating the Year of the Dog. This mount was simply purchased on the store. However, in the Asian servers, like the Rooster the year before, it was earned for free through a special subscription package. Lastly, like the Magical Rooster and Shenzhou for Asia, the rest of the world was about to get a free mount the same way they got the Tyrael's Charger. By buying a 6-month sub, they could get the Dreadwake mount for free. Or they could buy it from the store itself if they did not want to pay for a 6-month subscription. Now on to 2019, and WoW's 15th year anniversary. This brought 3 new mounts with it. The Alabaster Griffin and Wyvern, based on your faction. These mounts were available from the in-game store, and as part of the physical collector's edition celebrating 15 years. And for the 4th and final year in a row, BlizzCon gave another faction-based reward. This time a pet Murloc based on Anduin and Sylvanas, alongside a special transmog set, a pair of Yeti pajamas. They also released another mount for the Chinese New Year, Hogress, yet again a 6-month promo for China, but for the rest of the world, a simple store mount. Another special thing they did this year was add 2 toys to the in-game shop. These 2 toys were released on the store with the promise of their profits going to the prize pool for tournaments, although this had a lot of its own issues in the community, which they rightly called them out for. The toys being the Transmorpher and the Faction Fireworks. Lastly, we had the Dottie pet, added to the store, which was this year's charity event pet. And another 6-month subscription reward mount added, the Silverian Dreamer. Now on to 2020, the year of, well, Shadowlands. The most recent expansion and a new, much larger collector's edition, containing multiple versions with more rewards than the last. It had a special weapon enchant called Wrathchill, armor set called Vestments of the Eternal Traveler, the Everworm mount, Eternal Traveler Hearthstone, and Anima Wormling pet. On top of that, something to mention is that Mista Pandaria was the first expansion to have a digital collector's edition. However, after some time it was removed from the online store. But every expansion since has stayed on the online store. And so with 2020, they returned the Pandaren pet and mount to the store. Next, we have 2 more mounts, both of them yet again 6-month sub promos. The Steam Scale Incinerator, and finally, the Chinese New Year mounts, which would also be made a 6-month sub promo for the whole world, making the next 6-month sub mount Squeakers, a rat for that year of the rat. But before we move on, there was one more 6-month promo that year, in the Spirit Darter costume. This transmog set is the first full set put on the store, and like the Steam Scale and Squeakers, it was given free to people who had a 6-month sub going on, or available on the store for everyone else. And just like with the transmog hoods 7 years prior, was met with a lot of backlash. Well, technically, all 6-month promos and store mounts are met with backlash, but the transmog items got way more, as it's seen as a lesser item than mounts to most players. Funny enough, there is almost 0 backlash for transmog items that come with BlizzCon rewards. And now, 2021. We already have 2 mounts, the Lucky Yoon Ox from the Year of the Ox 6-month promo, and the Snowstorm Bear from the BlizzCon Virtual Goodie Bundle, as 2020's BlizzCon was postponed and made entirely free and virtual, with the usual goodies being added as a bonus bundle. This bundle also giving the Moonwell pet, an alternate color version of the TBC Collector's Edition pet. Lastly, at BlizzCon 2021, 2020, whatever it's meant to be, they announced 2 new charity pets, this time changing it up a bit to make it much more player friendly. Players can donate any amount they want, as little or as much as they want, and by doing so, they add to a donation pool, which when it reaches a specific amount, gives all players the Bananas monkey pet, which is originally from the TCG, to all players, even those who did not donate, as well as a new pet called Daisy the Sloth if the donations reach a stretch goal. Then giving all players donated or not 2 new pets, basically for free, but also basically still a microtransaction. Now, before we end, there is something else to mention. Blizzard has many games, and they love to have their games cross over. And for all these collector's editions of WoW games, they also give rewards for the other games, like StarCraft 2, Overwatch, Heroes of the Storm, Hearthstone, and Diablo 3. However, those games also cross over into WoW. So quickly, StarCraft 2 Collector's Edition, you got the Mini Thor pet. StarCraft 2 Heart of the Swarm got you the Baneling pet. StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void got you the Zeradar Archon pet. Diablo 3 got you the Fetish Shaman pet. Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls got you the Treasure Goblin pet. And Overwatch's Collector's Edition got you the Baby Winston pet in WoW. And now we are done. That is all the microtransactions in all of WoW that we could find. Something to note is that if you go off the actual list, the amount of microtransactions has drastically gone down over the past few years. Although many people did not know about many of the things, as 2006 to 2013 was filled with stuff. And as of recent years, we're returning to a more manageable amounts, especially with these mounts that are given for free to people who either already have a 6-month sub or purchase one during their promotion. Well, as free as an incentive to pay for a long sub is anyway.